A black FBI dad battles bullies to save his son, exposing a drug ring. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell to catch our latest epic stories. The Harlem Alley was a jagged scar of flickering streetlights and graffiti-stained walls, its air thick with the acrid stench of cigarette smoke as Jamal Tate, a 14-year-old black teen, flinched, his lanky frame pinned against a dumpster, his eyes wide with pain as Kyle Brennan, a wiry 17-year-old with a sneer carved into his face, pressed a glowing cigarette tip into Jamal's forearm, the sizzle of burning skin drowned by the jeers of over 20 high schoolers circling like vultures. Their taunts, "You're nothing, kid, and this is our turf," laced with racial venom that cut deeper than the burn. Jamal's backpack lay torn, his school book scattered, his voice a choked plea. "Stop, please!" But Kyle laughed, flicking ash, his eyes glinting with cruelty. "Cry all you want. Nobody's coming." The mob roared, some filming with phones, their hate a palpable force. But the alley's shadows parted as Marcus Tate, a 35-year-old FBI special agent just back from a decoy mission, rounded the corner, his muscular frame in a crisp suit freezing at the sight of his son's torment, his dark eyes flashing with a fury that could shatter stone. "Get your hands off my boy!" Marcus roared, his voice a thunderclap that silenced the crowd, his briefcase hitting the pavement as he sprinted forward, shoving through the mob to reach Jamal. Kyle spun, his smirk defiant, tossing the cigarette. "Who's this? Your daddy thinks he's tough." The group closed in, their laughter sharp, but Marcus pulled Jamal behind him, his stance a fortress, his voice low, lethal. "Back off, now." Jamal clung to his father, his arm raw, his eyes wet but fierce. "Dad, they jumped me." But before he could finish, Kyle swung a fist, grazing Marcus's jaw, and the alley erupted, the mob descending like wolves, fists and boots slamming into Marcus's ribs, his back, his head. He fought back, his FBI training a blur of precise strikes, toppling two teens. But a metal pipe cracked against his skull, blood streaming down his temple as he staggered, shielding Jamal. "Run, son!" Marcus gasped, but Jamal refused, swinging his backpack, his voice a cry. "I'm not leaving you!" A final blow sent Marcus to his knees, the world blurring as sirens wailed, the mob scattering, leaving father and son crumpled on the pavement. Hours later, Marcus woke in a Harlem hospital, his ribs taped, his head bandaged, Jamal in the next bed, his arm burned and splinted, his face etched with guilt. "I didn't mean for this, Dad," Jamal whispered, but Marcus gripped his hand, his voice a vow. "You're my son. They'll answer for this." Aisha, his wife, a nurse with unyielding strength, sat between them, her eyes glistening, but her voice fierce. "We're a family, Marcus. We fight together." The sterile room was a haven, but the attack's brutality, a racial assault orchestrated with chilling precision, ignited a fire in Marcus's chest. His FBI badge a secret he kept from the hospital staff, knowing its weight could complicate his plan. The NYPD's report was a sham, no arrests, the alley's security camera disabled, and Marcus's instincts, honed by years tracking cartels, screamed corruption. He filed a lawsuit against Kyle and the mob, but the response was ominous. Kyle's father, Lieutenant Daniel Brennan, a veteran cop, visited the hospital, his smile cold, his voice a threat. "Let this go, Tate. You don't want enemies." Marcus met his gaze, his eyes steel, his voice a growl. "You made one already, Brennan." The cop's confidence wavered, but he left, and Marcus knew the stakes were higher than a schoolyard fight. Brennan's involvement hinted at something darker, a shadow over Harlem's streets. Aisha's hand tightened on his, her voice urgent. "They're covering for those kids. Marcus, what's next?" He leaned back, his mind racing, the drugs at Jamal's school, Kyle's brazen cruelty, the mob's coordination. It reeked of a larger game. As an FBI agent, Marcus had busted dealers, exposed corruption, and he saw the signs. But exposing them meant risking his cover, his family's safety. The hospital's hum faded as he replayed Jamal's pain. The cigarettes burned, the mob's hate, and his resolve hardened. He wasn't just a father, he was Special Agent Marcus Tate, a warrior forged in the Bureau's shadows, and he'd ripped through the lies to protect his son. Discharged but battered, Marcus stood outside the hospital, Aisha and Jamal beside him, the city's pulse a call to war. A black SUV idled across the street, its driver hidden, a warning that echoed Brennan's threat. But Marcus's smile was cold, his badge a secret weapon, his vow a flame. "They think we're broken," he said, his voice a promise. "They'll learn." New York was a battlefield, the courtroom looming, and Marcus Tate was no victim. He was an agent, a father, a force, ready to unleash a reckoning that would shake Harlem to its core. The Harlem morning was a gray shroud of mist and muted horns, its pulse a stark reminder of the battle Marcus Tate had ignited when he witnessed his 14-year-old son, Jamal, burned with a cigarette by a mob of high schoolers led by Kyle Brennan. A vicious assault that had left both father and son battered in a hospital, their bodies bruised but their spirits unbowed. Marcus, a 35-year-old FBI special agent, stood outside the New York County Supreme Court, his muscular frame tense in a tailored suit, his dark eyes sharp with a fury tempered by years in the Bureau. His wife, Aisha, and Jamal by his side, their faces etched with determination despite the bandages on Jamal's arm and the stitches above Marcus's brow. The alley attack, a racial onslaught orchestrated with chilling precision, burned in Marcus's chest, a wound deeper than the pipe that had cracked his skull, and he'd filed a lawsuit against Kyle and the 20-plus teens, naming them for assault and battery, a legal salvo to demand justice. But the courtroom, a cavern of polished wood and cold justice, was a battlefield where truth faced an uphill fight. And Marcus, his FBI badge a secret kept even from his family, sensed a storm brewing as they entered. The gallery's whispers, troublemakers, and "they're wasting our time," a venomous echo of the mob's taunts. The judge, Evelyn Harper, a veteran with a no-nonsense demeanor, peered over her glasses. Her voice clipped as she addressed the plaintiffs. But before Marcus could present his case, the defense attorney, Victor Lang, a slick lawyer with ties to the NYPD, rose, his smirk a mirror of Kyle's arrogance, his voice oily with confidence. "Your Honor, the plaintiff's claims are baseless, a family dispute exaggerated to smear innocent students. We have evidence proving no assault occurred." Marcus's jaw tightened, his heart pounding as Lang produced a doctored security video, its grainy frames showing an empty alley, the timestamp conveniently matching the attack, a blatant lie that erased the mob's violence. The gallery buzzed, and Lang called a witness, a shopkeeper who claimed, "I saw nothing that night, just kids hanging out." Marcus recognized the man as a precinct informant, his testimony bought, and his gut churned. Someone had tampered with the evidence, and his suspicions zeroed in on Kyle's father, Lieutenant Daniel Brennan, the NYPD officer whose cold threat in the hospital still echoed. "Drop this, Tate." Harper's eyes narrowed, her voice skeptical but bound by procedure. "Mr. Tate, your evidence?" Marcus stood, his presence commanding, his voice steady despite the weight of betrayal. "Your Honor, the video's been altered, metadata's missing, and I can prove it. The witness is lying, paid by the precinct. I have hospital records, Jamal's burns, my injuries, and a neighbor's statement confirming the attack." But Lang interrupted, his smirk widening, producing a police report signed by Brennan, claiming the alley was clear, no arrests made, no crime scene found. The gallery's jeers grew. "He's making it up," and Harper's gavel slammed, her voice firm. "Without corroborating footage, Mr. Tate, your case is weak. I'm dismissing the suit." The ruling was a gut punch, the courtroom a wall of injustice, and Marcus's fist clenched, his mind racing. Brennan had covered his son's tracks, destroyed the truth, but he wasn't done. Aisha's hand gripped his, her voice a whisper. "We're not giving up." Marcus, Jamal's eyes, still shadowed by pain, met his, and Marcus nodded, his vow silent but ironclad. Outside, the city's hum was a call to war, but the community's scorn was relentless. Neighbors who'd cheered Jamal's science fair wins now avoided Aisha's gaze, their whispers blaming the Tates for stirring trouble. Social media buzzed with posts from Kyle's friends, calling Marcus a thug and Jamal a snitch, racial slurs peppering the comments. The school principal, under pressure from Brennan's allies, sent a letter warning of Jamal's disciplinary review, a veiled threat to his future. But Marcus, his FBI training a shield, saw the pattern. Kyle's mob wasn't just bullies. Their coordination, their access to resources, hinted at something darker, a network Marcus had seen in drug busts. At their Harlem brownstone, Marcus met Aisha in their study, his laptop glowing with files he'd pulled from FBI databases, his voice low. "Brennan's not just protecting Kyle, he's hiding something. I'm digging. Aisha, but I can't tell you everything yet." Aisha's eyes searched his, her voice fierce. "Whatever you're doing, keep Jamal safe." He nodded, his badge a secret burden, his mind replaying the alley. The cigarette's burn, Brennan's threat. He hacked into precinct logs, finding gaps, missing reports, altered timestamps, and a tip from a bureau contact. Kyle's school was a hub for low-level dealers, a thread Marcus followed, uncovering text between Kyle and unknown numbers, coded references to product. The discovery was a spark, but dangerous. Exposing it meant risking his cover, his family's safety. That night, Marcus visited Tom, a neighbor who'd seen the attack, his voice cautious. "I heard Kyle bragging about running the block." "Marcus, be careful, he's untouchable." Marcus's pulse quickened, Tom's warning echoing the black SUV that had trailed them, its driver obscured, a constant threat. The lawsuit was dead, but Marcus's fight was alive. His evidence, hospital records, a neighbor's account, hacked logs, a growing arsenal. New York was a crucible, the streets a chessboard, and Marcus Tate was no victim. He was a special agent, a father, a warrior. His resolve a flame ready to burn through Brennan's lies. His family's safety the stake as he braced for a war that would shake Harlem to its core. The Harlem night was a tapestry of neon flickers and distant sirens. Its pulse a relentless drumbeat that echoed the war Marcus Tate had ignited since the brutal alley attack on his 14-year-old son, Jamal, a racial assault that had left both father and son battered, their resolve unbroken despite the scars. Marcus, a 35-year-old FBI special agent, sat in the dim glow of his Harlem brownstone study, his muscular frame hunched over a laptop, his dark eyes sharp with the focus of a man who'd spent years dismantling cartels. Now turned to a more personal mission, exposing the mob of high schoolers led by Kyle Brennan, whose cigarette had burned Jamal's arm, whose fists had broken Marcus's ribs. The courtroom defeat, a lawsuit dismissed by Judge Evelyn Harper after Lieutenant Daniel Brennan, Kyle's father, erased critical evidence, had only fueled Marcus's fire, his FBI badge a secret kept from his wife, Aisha, and Jamal, a weapon he wielded in the shadows as he dug into the rot infecting his son's school. The precinct's cover-up, the doctored video, the paid witness, the missing crime scene reeked of corruption, and Marcus's instincts, honed by a decade in the bureau, screamed that Brennan was shielding more than a teenage brawl. His investigation, launched in the wake of the failed suit, had uncovered a thread, coded text between Kyle and unknown numbers, intercepted through a bureau wiretap, hinting at drops in product, language Marcus recognized from drug busts. The Harlem High School, a sprawling brick fortress, was no mere battleground for bullies. It was a hub, and Kyle, with his brazen arrogance, was no ordinary thug. Marcus slipped into the night, his unmarked sedan gliding through Harlem's streets, his destination a derelict lot near the school where Kyle's text suggested a deal. Hidden in the shadows, his camera rolling, Marcus watched as Kyle and three teens met a hooded figure, exchanging a backpack for a wad of cash. Their movements practiced, their voices low but careless. "This batch is clean," Kyle muttered, pocketing the money, unaware of Marcus's lens capturing every move. The footage was gold, clear evidence of drug trafficking, but Marcus needed more. A link to Brennan, a chain to the precinct's corruption. Back in his study, he cross-referenced the video with school records, hacked through a bureau back door, finding Kyle's crew, 6 key players, all tied to unexplained cash flows. Their social media flaunting designer gear no teen could afford. A tip from Tom, the neighbor who'd witnessed the alley attack, confirmed the pattern. Kyle's running something. Marcus. Kids are scared, but they talk. Drugs, deals, and his dad's name keeps coming up. Marcus's pulse quickened, Tom's words a spark, but the danger was palpable. The black SUV that had trailed his family since the hospital was a constant shadow, its driver obscured, a silent threat that echoed Brennan's hospital warning. "You don't want enemies." Aisha, her nurse's instincts sharp, noticed Marcus's late nights, her voice urgent as she confronted him in their kitchen. Jamal asleep upstairs, his arm still bandaged. "You're not just a dad fighting for Jamal. Marcus, what's going on?" Marcus hesitated, his badge a burden he couldn't share. His voice low. "I'm getting justice. Aisha, trust me, but don't ask yet." Her eyes searched his, her hand gripping his, her trust a lifeline, but the weight of his secrecy pressed harder. The community's scorn was relentless. Neighbors who'd once invited the Tates to barbecues now crossed the street, their whispers blaming Marcus for escalating the alley incident. Social media posts from Kyle's allies calling him a troublemaker. Racial slurs a constant sting. Jamal faced taunts at school, his locker vandalized with "snitch," a warning that twisted Marcus's gut. But Jamal's voice, though shaky, was fierce. "I'm not scared. Dad, I want them stopped." Marcus hugged him, his heart swelling, his resolve ironclad. He met Lena, an FBI tech analyst and old friend, in a discreet diner, her voice low as she handed him a drive. Kyle's text traced to a burner linked to a precinct server. Brennan's involved. Marcus, but he's got protection. Someone high up. The drive held intercepted calls. Brennan's voice, vague but incriminating, discussing shipments and keeping the kid clean. Marcus's mind raced. The school was a front, Kyle a pawn, Brennan a gatekeeper, but exposing them meant risking his cover, his family's safety. That night, as Marcus reviewed the footage, a brick crashed through his brownstone's window, glass shattering across the floor. A note tied to it, "Back off, or your kid's next." Aisha's scream woke Jamal, and Marcus pulled them close, his voice steady despite the fury in his chest. "They're scared," he said, his eyes scanning the street, the SUV's taillights vanishing. The precinct's reach was long, the community's trust fragile, but Marcus's evidence, video, calls, texts, was a growing arsenal. He wasn't just a father, he was Special Agent Marcus Tate, a warrior whose badge was a secret blade. His family's safety the stake as he braced for a fight that would tear through Harlem's shadows, exposing a truth that would shake New York to its core. The Harlem afternoon was a cauldron of restless energy, the air thick with the hum of school bells and the shuffle of sneakers as Marcus Tate stood at the gates of Harlem Unity High, his muscular frame taut in a charcoal suit, his dark eyes blazing with a resolve forged in the crucible of a war that had consumed him since the alley attack on his 14-year-old son, Jamal, a brutal assault that had left both father and son battered, their spirits unbroken despite the burns on Jamal's arm and the stitches above Marcus's brow. The failed lawsuit against Kyle Brennan and his mob of high schoolers, Dismissed after Lieutenant Daniel Brennan's tampering erased critical evidence, had only sharpened Marcus's focus. His FBI badge, a secret weapon he had wielded in the shadows, uncovering a chilling truth. Kyle's group wasn't just bullying, they were running a drug ring. Their deals captured on Marcus's hidden camera, their coded texts intercepted through bureau wiretaps, all pointing to Brennan as their protector. Today, Marcus was done lurking. He'd come to confront Kyle and his father, to light a fuse that would burn through their lies, even if it meant risking his cover. The school courtyard, a sprawl of concrete and chain link, buzzed with students, their chatter halting as Marcus strode through, his presence commanding. Jamal by his side, his bandaged arm a silent testament to the mob's cruelty. Aisha, stationed at the car, watched with a fierce gaze, her trust in Marcus a lifeline. Kyle lounged near the bleachers, his wiry frame flanked by 6 of his crew, their smirks fading as Marcus approached, his voice a low growl that cut through the crowd. "Kyle Brennan, you and your friends are done hurting my son. I know what you're running, and it ends now." The courtyard stilled, students whispering, phones raised, and Kyle's eyes narrowed, his sneer defiant but shaken. "You're crazy. Man, got no proof." Marcus pulled a tablet from his jacket, its screen flaring with the lot footage, Kyle exchanging a backpack for cash, his voice clear. "This batch is clean." The group froze, their faces paling, and Kyle's bravado cracked, his voice shrill. "That's fake! You're making this up!" But the students gasped, their murmurs swelling, and Marcus's gaze pierced Kyle's, his words a blade. "I'm Special Agent Marcus Tate, FBI, and this is just the start. You're selling drugs, Kyle, and your dad's covering for you." The courtyard erupted, students shouting, teachers emerging, and Kyle's crew scattered, 2 bolting for the gate. But Marcus's voice boomed, halting them. "Don't run, I've got more. Texts, calls, your deals. You're finished." Besides, the revelation of his FBI status was a thunderclap, the crowd reeling, Jamal's eyes wide with awe. But before Marcus could continue, Daniel Brennan stormed through the gates, his NYPD uniform gleaming, his face a mask of rage. "Tate, you're out of line," Brennan bellowed, his voice a threat that silenced the yard. "You're harassing kids, abusing your badge. I'll have you investigated." The crowd buzzed, some cheering Brennan, others backing Marcus, their divide a microcosm of Harlem's fractured trust. Marcus stood his ground, his tablet raised, playing a snippet of Brennan's intercepted call, his voice vague but damning. "Keep the kid clean." Brennan's face drained of color, his hand twitching toward his holster. But Marcus's gaze was steel, his voice steady. "You erased my son's attack, Brennan, and you're shielding a drug ring. Step down, or I'll bury you." And the courtyard was a powder keg, students filming, teachers frozen, and Kyle, cornered, shouted, "He's lying, Dad! Shut him up!" But Brennan's eyes darted, his confidence crumbling, and he lunged for the tablet, only for Marcus to sidestep, his training a shield. "You're done, Lieutenant," Marcus said, his voice a vow, and the crowd roared, activists from the community center pushing forward, their chants, "Justice for Jamal," a rising tide. Sarah, a school counselor who'd suspected Kyle's dealings, stepped beside Marcus, her voice firm. "I've seen the drugs, Tate. I'll testify." Her support was a spark, but Brennan, desperate, turned to the crowd, his voice booming. "Tate's a rogue agent, framing my son. He's the criminal here." The accusation was a grenade, some students nodding, others shouting back, and Marcus felt the weight of Brennan's influence, his precinct allies a shadow over Harlem. Aisha, watching from the car, gripping her phone, ready to call for backup. But Marcus raised a hand, his voice cutting through the chaos. "You want to play dirty, Brennan? I've got more. Your calls, your payoffs, your son's deals. The FBI's watching, and you're out of time. The crowd gasped, Kyle's crew shrinking, and Brennan's face twisted, his voice a hiss. "You'll regret this. Tate." "Man," he stormed off, Kyle trailing. But Marcus knew the fight was escalating. Brennan's Wukong was a desperate counterattack, a bid to discredit him before the Bureau could act. Back at the brownstone, Aisha confronted him, her voice trembling but fierce. "You're FBI. Marcus, why didn't you tell us?" Jamal, his eyes shining, added, "Dad, that was awesome, but are we safe?" Marcus pulled them close, his voice steady. "I kept it secret to protect you. We're in this together now." The black SUV idled outside, its presence a constant threat, and Marcus's evidence, video, text, calls, was a ticking bomb. Harlem was a crucible, the school a chessboard, and Marcus Tate was no victim. He was a special agent, a father, a warrior, his badge a blade ready to cut through Brennan's empire, his family's courage the shield as he braced for a reckoning that would shake New York. The Harlem skyline glittered under a starless night, its pulse a relentless drumbeat that echoed the war Marcus Tate had unleashed since his confrontation at Harlem Unity High, where he'd revealed his FBI badge to a stunned crowd, exposing Kyle Brennan's drug trafficking and accusing Lieutenant Daniel Brennan, Kyle's father, of shielding a criminal network that had brutalized his 14-year-old son, Jamal. Marcus, a 35-year-old special agent, sat in a dimly lit FBI safe house, his muscular frame tense over a table strewn with case files, his dark eyes sharp with the focus of a man who'd spent a decade dismantling cartels, now turned to a mission that cut deeper, protecting his family and purging the rot from his community. The alley attack, Kyle's cigarette burning Jamal's arm, the mob's fists breaking Marcus's ribs, had ignited a fire that the courtroom's dismissal only fueled. In his schoolyard showdown, backed by video evidence and intercepted texts, had rattled Kyle's crew and Brennan's confidence. But the precinct's counterattack, Brennan's Wukong, accusing Marcus of abusing his badge, had raised the stakes, casting a shadow over Harlem streets. Marcus's cover, once a shield, was now a liability. His badge known to the school but still hidden from most, a secret he guarded to protect Aisha and Jamal, whose trust anchored him despite the strain of his silence. At the safe house, Lena, his FBI tech analyst, briefed him, her voice low as she projected a map on her laptop. Red dots marking drug drops across Harlem, linked to Kyle's crew. "We've traced their burner phones to a warehouse on 125th Street, Lena said, sliding a drive across the table. Calls mentioned the lieutenant, Brennan's neck deep, Marcus. But there's a bigger player, someone above him. Marcus's pulse quickened, his mind racing. The warehouse was a lead, but the mention of a higher figure, possibly a precinct captain or city official, hinted at a network far beyond Kyle's deals. He'd already gathered damning evidence, lot footage, coded texts, a precinct call implicating Brennan, but needed a direct link to the chain of command. His team, a tight unit of 4 agents, planned a sting, but the danger was escalating. Brennan's influence ran deep, his allies in the NYPD circling like vultures. Back at their Harlem brownstone, Aisha's voice trembled with worry. Her nurse's instincts were sharp as she confronted Marcus, Jamal asleep upstairs, his bandaged arm a constant reminder. "You're FBI, Marcus, and you didn't tell us. Now they're coming for us. What's next?" Marcus pulled her close, his voice steady but heavy. "I'm taking them down, Aisha, for Jamal, for us. I need you to trust me." Her eyes searched his, her nod a lifeline, but the weight of his secrecy pressed harder. The black SUV's presence outside their home a silent threat, its driver obscured, a specter of Brennan's reach. The community was a crucible. Southside activists rallied at community centers, their signs reading "Tate fights for Harlem," while Brennan's allies, backed by police unions, smeared Marcus on local news, calling him a rogue agent and threat to order, racial undertones lacing their attacks. Jamal faced intensifying harassment at school, his locker defaced with FBI snitch, a knife left inside, a warning that twisted Marcus's gut. But Jamal's resolve, mirroring his father's, shone through, his voice fierce. "I'm not running! Dad, let's stop them!" Marcus hugged him, his heart swelling, his mission clear. He infiltrated a school event, posing as a parent, his camera hidden, capturing Kyle passing a small packet to a teacher's aide, a transaction too slick for a teen. The aide's nervous glance betraying complicity. The footage was a breakthrough, but the risk was immense. Marcus's team hacked precinct servers, finding a money trail from drug sales to an offshore account, with Brennan's digital fingerprints. But the higher player remained elusive. A breakthrough came when Tom, the neighbor who'd witnessed the alley attack, slipped Marcus a tip. Kyle's crew met nightly at the warehouse, and Brennan was seen there, overseeing a delivery. Marcus planned a surveillance op, but the danger struck first. That night, as Aisha drove home from her shift, a car rammed hers, forcing her off the road, a masked driver fleeing as she called Marcus, her voice shaken but defiant. "I'm okay, but they're targeting us." Marcus rushed to her, his heart pounding, the SUV's taillights vanishing around a corner. A message clear: back off. The community's support surged. Activists organized vigils, their chants drowning out the precinct's propaganda. And Sarah, the school counselor, provided a list of students coerced by Kyle's crew, their fear a testament to the ring's grip. Marcus met his team at the safe house, Lena unveiling a decrypted email, a precinct captain, linked to Brennan, authorizing protection for Kyle's deals, a smoking gun that could topple the network. But the captain's name was redacted, a final piece Marcus needed. The warehouse op was set, his team ready, but the threats, Tom's vandalized truck, Aisha's crash, Jamal's knife, were a noose tightening around his family. Marcus pulled Jamal close, his voice a vow. "I'll keep you safe, son. This ends soon." Harlem was a crucible, the streets a chessboard, and Marcus Tate was no victim. He was a special agent, a father, a warrior, his evidence a flame ready to burn through Brennan's empire. His family's courage the shield as he braced for a showdown that would shake New York to its core. Marcus Tate crouched in the shadows of a Harlem warehouse, his muscular frame tense, his dark eyes locked on the flickering silhouettes of Kyle Brennan and his crew, their voices low as they exchanged backpacks with a hooded dealer, the air thick with the weight of a drug deal that could break the network Marcus had hunted since the alley attack on his 14-year-old son. Jamal. As a 35-year-old FBI special agent, Marcus had orchestrated this sting with his four-man team, his badge a secret blade now unsheathed after his schoolyard confrontation, where he'd revealed his identity to expose Kyle's trafficking and accuse Lieutenant Daniel Brennan, Kyle's father, of shielding a criminal empire. The evidence, lot footage, intercepted text, a damning precinct call, had rattled Brennan's world. But his counterattack, Wukong Marcus as a rogue agent, had escalated the war, and tonight's op was Marcus's chance to end it. His team, led by tech analyst Lena, had traced Kyle's deals to this warehouse, a hub linked to Brennan's offshore accounts, and Marcus's heart pounded with the stakes. Jamal's safety, Aisha's trust, Harlem's future. Lena's voice crackled in his earpiece, sharp and urgent. "Deal's happening now. Marcus, we've got eyes on Brennan, north exit, overseeing it." Marcus nodded, his camera rolling, capturing Kyle's crew, 6 teens, their movements practiced, handing off packets for cash. Unaware of the FBI's net closing in, he signaled his team, his voice a low growl. "Move in, now!" The warehouse erupted, agents bursting through side doors, flashlights cutting through the dark, shouts of FBI, "Hands up!" echoing as Kyle's crew froze, backpacks dropping, the dealer bolting only to be tackled by Agent Carter. Marcus charged forward, his gun drawn but steady, pinning Kyle against a crate, the teen's smirk gone, his eyes wide with panic. "You're done, Brennan," Marcus said, his voice a blade, cuffing Kyle as the boy stammered, "You can't prove nothing." But Marcus's tablet, now in Lena's hands, played the footage, Kyle's deal, clear as day, synced with texts ordering product drops. The teens, cuffed and lined up, shouted denials, but their fear betrayed them, and Marcus's gaze shifted to the north exit, where Brennan, in plainclothes, tried to slip away, only to be grabbed by Agent Diaz. "Going somewhere, Lieutenant?" Marcus said, his voice icy, shoving Brennan against a wall, the cop's face ashen, his hands trembling. "This is a setup. Tate, you're finished." Brennan spat, but Marcus played the precinct call, Brennan's voice ordering protection for Kyle, a death knell for his career. The bust was swift, 10 arrests, including Kyle, his crew, and the dealer, with bags of heroin and cash seized, the warehouse sealed. Marcus's team secured the scene, but he knew the real fight was public, exposing Brennan's corruption to break the precinct's grip. Hours later, at a press conference outside the warehouse, Marcus faced a sea of cameras, his suit rumpled, but his presence commanding. Aisha and Jamal by his side, their eyes shining with pride despite the bandages. "I'm Special Agent Marcus Tate," he declared, his voice resonant, cutting through the reporter's buzz. "Lieutenant Daniel Brennan shielded a drug ring run by his son, Kyle, endangering Harlem's kids, including my own. We've arrested 10 suspects, seized evidence, and the FBI's digging deeper. Nobody's above the law." The crowd roared, activists chanting justice for Jamal, while police union reps booed, their protest drowned by the community's support. Brennan, cuffed in a squad car, glared through the window, his empire crumbling. But Marcus knew the higher player, a precinct captain hinted at in emails, remained untouched, a shadow still looming. The bust was a triumph, but the retaliation was immediate. Hours after the press conference, a Molotov cocktail shattered through the Tate's brownstone window, flames licking the curtains before Aisha doused them, her scream waking Jamal, who clung to Marcus, his voice trembling. "They won't stop, Dad." Marcus pulled them close, his heart racing, his voice steady. "They're desperate. Son, we're stronger." The SUV, a constant threat, idled nearby, its driver obscured, a message from Brennan's allies. Marcus's team traced the attack to a known precinct fixer, but the captain's name stayed hidden. A final piece Marcus needed. Community support surged. Sarah, the school counselor, organized a rally, hundreds marching with signs reading, "Tate protects us," while Tom, the neighbor, provided a new lead, a teacher's aide, caught on Marcus's school footage, was ready to flip, terrified of Kyle's crew. Lena decrypted more emails, revealing Brennan's payoffs from drug profits, but the captain's redacted name taunted Marcus. The FBI planned a deeper probe, but the threats, Aisha's crash, Jamal's knife, the fire, were a noose tightening. Marcus met his team, his voice a vow. "We've got Brennan, but the head's still out there. We don't stop." Aisha, her nurse's strength unyielding, gripped his hand, her voice fierce. "For Jamal, for Harlem, finish this." The precinct's corruption was a hydra, the community's hope a shield, and Marcus Tate was no victim. He was a special agent, a father, a warrior, his evidence a flame ready to burn through the shadows, his family's courage the anchor as he braced for a final reckoning that would shake New York. Marcus Tate stood in the sterile glow of an FBI command center, his muscular frame rigid, his dark eyes burning with a resolve that had carried him through the fire of a Harlem warehouse bust, where he'd led his team to arrest Kyle Brennan and his drug trafficking crew, seizing heroin and cash while exposing Lieutenant Daniel Brennan's role as their protector, a bombshell that had rocked New York's precincts. The 35-year-old special agent, a father driven by the alley attack on his 14-year-old son, Jamal, had turned the tide with video evidence, intercepted calls, and a whistleblower's testimony. But Brennan's desperate counterattack, Wukong Marcus, as a rogue agent, had ignited a new war, and now, with the precinct's corruption laid bare, the stakes were higher than ever. Marcus's badge, once a secret, was now a target. His family, Aisha and Jamal, under siege after a Molotov cocktail torched their brownstone, a retaliation that fueled his mission to end this once and for all. Today's briefing, a prelude to a federal hearing to indict Brennan and his network, was a crucible where Marcus would present the final evidence. But Brennan's allies were fighting back, their influence a noose tightening around Harlem. Lena, his tech analyst, slid a drive across the table, her voice urgent. "We've got a name, Captain Edward Rawls, Brennan's boss, linked to the offshore accounts. But they're moving fast. Marcus, they've doctored new evidence to discredit you." Marcus's jaw tightened, his heart pounding. The captain was the shadow he'd chased, the redacted name in emails, and now they had him. But Brennan's retaliation was vicious. That morning, Tom, the neighbor who tipped Marcus about Kyle's deals, was attacked, his jaw broken, a note pinned to his shirt, "Keep quiet, or worse." Sarah, the school counselor, received a death threat, her car spray-painted with snitch, a warning to silence her testimony about coerced students. Aisha, her nurse's strength tested, found a knife in their mailbox, its blade etched with Tate. And Jamal, his arm still bandaged, faced a new taunt at school, a fake police report leaked by Brennan's allies, claiming Marcus had planted the warehouse drugs. The community was a powder keg. Southside activists marched, their signs reading "Tate for Justice." But police unions flooded news with smears, calling Marcus a liar and threat, racial slurs lacing their attacks. Marcus met his team, his voice a vow. "They're scared, hitting us where it hurts. We hit harder." Lena played a decrypted call, Rawls to Brennan, ordering "Clean the evidence, bury Tate," a smoking gun that tied the captain to the drug ring. Marcus's team secured a second affidavit from the teacher's aide, now in protective custody, detailing Kyle's coercion of students under Brennan's watch. And a forensic report confirmed the warehouse drugs matched a precinct seizure, proving Brennan's unit had recycled evidence. The evidence was ironclad, but the hearing was a battlefield. Brennan's allies, backed by Rawls, produced a forged FBI memo, leaked to the press, alleging Marcus had falsified the warehouse footage. The smear hit hard, local TV running "Rogue Agent" headlines, and the DA warned Marcus, "They're pressuring the judge. Protect your witnesses, or this falls apart." Marcus's heart raced, but his resolve was steel. He moved Aisha and Jamal to a safe house, their eyes fierce with trust. Aisha's voice steady. "Finish this, Marcus. For us." At the federal courthouse, Marcus faced a packed gallery, activists chanting outside, their voices a shield against the precinct's propaganda. Judge Carla Rivera, a no-nonsense jurist, called for order, but Warner, now representing Brennan, rose, his voice shrill. "Agent Tate's evidence is fabricated. Your Honor, we have a memo proving he planted the drugs." Marcus stood, his presence commanding, his voice a thunderclap. "That memo's a fake, Your Honor, and I'll prove it." He presented the forensic report, tying the drugs to Brennan's unit, followed by the aide's affidavit, detailing the ring's operations. Lena played Rawls's call, his voice ordering the cover-up, and Marcus unveiled the clincher, a recovered bank transfer from Rawls to Brennan, funding Kyle's deals, traced to the offshore account. The gallery erupted, activists cheering, reporters scrambling, and Warner's face paled. His objection, "This is inadmissible," drowned by Rivera's gavel, her voice firm. "Overruled. This court will not be manipulated." Brennan, in the dock, slumped, his eyes hollow, while Kyle, cuffed nearby, shouted, "It wasn't me." But the evidence was a death knell, and Rivera's ruling was clear. Indictments for Brennan, Kyle, and Rawls, with a federal probe into the precinct. The victory was seismic, but the danger lingered. A precinct fixer, linked to Rawls, was spotted near the safe house, and Marcus's team intercepted a call planning retribution. The community rallied, Sarah leading a school forum, students vowing to resist the ring's remnants, and Tom, recovering, provided a final lead. A dealer willing to testify about Rawls's orders. Marcus pulled Jamal close, his voice a vow. We're almost there, son. The precinct's corruption was crumbling, the community's hope a fortress, and Marcus Tate was no victim. He was a special agent, a father, a warrior. His evidence, a flame ready to burn through the lies. His family's courage, the anchor, as he braced for a final stand that would reshape Harlem. Marcus Tate stood at the center of the federal courthouse in Lower Manhattan, his muscular frame unyielding in a tailored suit, his dark eyes radiating a quiet triumph that had been forged through a relentless war, one that began with a cigarette burn on his 14-year-old son Jamal's arm and culminated in a battle that shook Harlem's core. The 35-year-old FBI special agent had turned a personal tragedy, the alley assault by Kyle Brennan's mob, into a crusade, exposing a drug ring run by high schoolers under the protection of Lieutenant Daniel Brennan and Captain Edward Rawls, a network unraveled by Marcus's evidence, warehouse footage, intercepted calls, bank transfers, and witness testimonies. The courtroom, a stark chamber of oak and steel, was packed with a gallery of activists, reporters, and Harlem residents. Their murmurs a tense hum as Judge Carla Rivera prepared to deliver the final ruling on Marcus's countersuit against Brennan, Kyle, and Rawls for assault, drug trafficking, and corruption, a verdict that would either cement justice or let the precincts rot fester. Marcus's badge, once a secret, was now a beacon. His family, Aisha and Jamal, seated behind him, their eyes fierce with pride despite the scars of Brennan's retaliation. A Molotov cocktail, a knife threat, Aisha's car crash. Rivera's gavel fell, her voice resolute. This court has reviewed the evidence, and it is overwhelming. The gallery leaned forward, and Marcus's heart pounded as Rivera continued, her words a thunderclap. Daniel Brennan, Kyle Brennan, and Edward Rawls are guilty of conspiracy, drug trafficking, evidence tampering, and obstruction of justice. They are hereby sentenced to federal prison with further charges pending. The courtroom erupted, activists chanting justice, while police union supporters slumped, their boos drowned by cheers. Marcus exhaled, his shoulders easing, but his gaze locked on Brennan, cuffed in the dock, his face hollow, his badge stripped, and Kyle, his defiance broken, his head bowed beside Rawls, whose stoic mask crumbled as marshals led them away. The gallery surged, reporters shouting questions. Agent Tate, what's next? But Marcus raised a hand, his voice steady, resonant. This isn't just my win, it's Harlem's. They targeted my son, our kids, our streets, but we fought back, together, and we won. Aisha gripped his hand, her nurse's strength a pillar, and Jamal, his arm healed but his spirit fiercer, hugged him, whispering, You did it, Dad. The victory was seismic. Brennan's unit was dismantled. Rawls' conviction triggered a federal probe into the NYPD, uncovering a dozen more officers linked to drug profits. Their arrests a ripple that shook the precinct to its core. Charles Warner, Brennan's lawyer, faced disbarment for falsifying evidence, his firm collapsing under lawsuits from other victims. Marcus's countersuit secured damages, funding a community center in Jamal's name, a haven for Harlem's youth to escape the streets. The community transformed. Neighbors who'd shunned the Tates now offered apologies, their whispers of troublemaker replaced by hero, and Southside activists crowned Marcus a leader, their rallies swelling with signs reading, Tate saved us, Harlem Unity High. Once a hub for Kyle's ring, implemented anti-bullying reforms, led by Sarah, the counselor whose testimony had bolstered Marcus's case. Tom, the neighbor beaten for his tip, recovered and joined the center's board, his voice amplifying Marcus's call. At a packed community forum, Marcus spoke, Aisha and Jamal beside him, his voice a clarion call. They burned my son, broke our bones, tried to silence us. But we rose, black, proud, unbroken. This is for every kid told they're less, every family fighting alone. Stand up, speak out, and we'll change this city. The crowd roared, their applause a tidal wave, and Lena, his FBI analyst, grinned from the wings. Her tech skills a cornerstone of the bust. The threats, the SUV, the fire, the knife, faded. Brennan's allies exposed. Rawls's network gutted. But Marcus knew the fight against prejudice and corruption was eternal. The FBI offered a promotion, but Marcus stayed in Harlem. His brownstone a hub for reform, his team probing deeper into City Hall's ties to the ring. Jamal, inspired, joined a youth law program, his eyes set on justice, while Aisha spearheaded a safety initiative, her strength a mirror of Marcus's. The community center opened, its walls painted with murals of Harlem's heroes, Jamal's face among them, a symbol of resilience. Marcus stood before it, Aisha's hand in his, and whispered, "We did this for you, son." New York was no longer a crucible but a canvas, and Marcus Tate was no victim. He was a special agent, a father, a beacon. His legacy a vow to fight, to protect, to build a city where no child would fear, where justice was not a dream, but a right for all. From a battered buddy to an FBI hero, Marcus Tate busted a drug ring and won justice. Thanks for listening. Like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell for more epic stories. Don't miss our next video.